Welcome to this deep dive, everybody. Today we're going to be cracking open the Kybalion.
Oh, excellent.
It's a text that's fascinated people for over a century. It's published in 1912.
Right.
But it draws on much, much older wisdom, going all the way back to ancient Egypt and Greece.
Yeah. Attributed to this mysterious figure, Hermes Trismegistus.
Right, like a legendary sage, almost.
Right.
And the book itself lays out these 7 Hermetic Principles, right? Which are supposed to be this kind of like roadmap to understanding the universe and maybe even mastering the powers of the mind, like mental transmutation.
Yes.
So what first got you hooked on the Kybalion?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, it was this idea that the all is mind, that reality itself is a mental creation, and that we can actually tap into that power and become conscious creators. It really resonated with me. It felt empowering, like we're not just pawns in some grand scheme, but we actually have a say in how our lives unfold.
Right. That's a pretty radical idea, right? Especially if you think about like the way most people go through life, just kind of reacting to whatever's thrown at them.
Exactly. Yeah. This is about becoming proactive, taking control. And the Kybalion gives us these principles as tools to do that. So should we jump into the first principle, mentalism?
Okay, mentalism. It
Yeah.
sounds a little intimidating. What does that even mean?
Well, it's the foundation of everything. It's basically saying that everything we experience, everything we perceive as reality, originates in the mind. The universe is mental.
So are you saying like the universe is like a giant thought?
In a way, yeah. It's suggesting that reality as we know it is a mental creation of this ultimate source, the all. That's the language they use.
Okay, so if that's true, I mean, doesn't that mean we have way more power to shape our lives than we think?
Absolutely. That's the implication. It challenges us to consider the power of our thoughts, our beliefs. Because if reality is mental, then our minds are part of that creative process.
That's a pretty big deal, right? I'm already starting to see how this could be applied in practical ways. Like, for example, if I'm constantly thinking negative thoughts, am I actually drawing more negativity into my life?
Exactly. And that leads us perfectly into the next principle, correspondence, which
Okay.
says, as above, so below, as below, so above. What we experience internally is reflected in our external reality. So yeah, if you're focused on negativity, fear, lack, that's what you're going to attract.
Okay. So it's like our thoughts and beliefs are creating this blueprint for our reality.
Precisely. And understanding that connection can empower us to make conscious choices about what we're thinking and believing, right?
Give me an example.
Sure. Let's say you want to start a business, right? But you're constantly battling this fear of failure. Well, according to this principle of correspondence, those fears are going to show up in your outer reality, maybe as obstacles or setbacks.
Now that makes sense.
But if you can shift your focus to courage, to determination, to success, you start aligning your inner and outer worlds so those positive outcomes become more likely.
Okay, so by grasping this correspondence principle, we can start to see these patterns between our inner world and what we're experiencing out there in the world.
It's about recognizing that we're not just passive observers, but active participants in shaping our reality.
That's a powerful idea. And that kind of leads us to the next principle, right? Vibration.
Vibration.
Okay,
Everything is in a constant state of motion, of vibration.
so what does that have to do with our thoughts?
Well, according to the Kybalion, our thoughts also have a vibration. And not only that, but they can influence the vibration of things around us.
Wait, so are you saying like my thoughts aren't just random noise in my head, they actually have like a real impact on the world?
Yeah. Think about it. If we accept the principle of correspondence, the idea that our inner world shapes our outer world, well, then the vibration of our thoughts matters because they're attracting similar vibrations from the universe.
So if I'm feeling anxious, fearful,
Yeah.
am I like emitting this low vibration that's drawing more negative experiences to me?
That's what the Kybalion suggests. And conversely, if you're feeling joyful, grateful, you're emitting a higher vibration. You attract more positive experiences. So you see, it's not just about thinking positive thoughts, it's about cultivating a positive vibrational state.
Wow. This is really making me think about the kinds of thoughts I dwell on.
Right. It's a shift in perspective. And this is where mental transmutation comes in, but we can dive into that a bit later. For now, let's move on to polarity.
Okay.
Principle number 4, which states, everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites.
Okay, so what does that mean? Like everything has two sides to it?
Exactly, just like a coin. But it's more than just recognizing that opposites exist. It's about understanding that those opposites are really extremes of the same thing, with many degrees in between.
So it's not black and white, but like a spectrum.
Exactly. And this understanding gives us the power to consciously shift our perspective. For example, if you're feeling stuck in fear, remember that courage is the opposite of fear. And by focusing on building courage, you can shift that energy, making that leap into entrepreneurship more possible.
So instead of trying to get rid of the fear, we can focus on its opposite and gradually move along that spectrum.
Precisely. And this applies to any situation, really. Feeling discouraged, focus on hope. Feeling weak, focus on strength. It's about recognizing the power we have to choose where we place our attention.
That's pretty empowering. It's like we're not stuck with our initial reactions, but can consciously choose a different perspective.
And that choice makes all the difference. Now, building on that idea of shifting perspectives, let's move on to rhythm. Principle number 5.
Okay, rhythm. What's that got to do with mental mastery?
It's all about understanding the cyclical nature of life. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. It's pointing to the fact that everything moves in cycles, swinging back and forth between those poles of opposites we just talked about.
So it's like the ebb and flow of the ocean.
Exactly. Or the changing seasons. And just like we can't stop the tides or the seasons, we can't stop the natural rhythms of life, but we can learn to ride them, to adapt, and even use them to our advantage.
So instead of resisting those downtimes, we could accept them as part of the cycle and just focus on navigating them.
Exactly. It's about understanding that nothing stays the same forever. The pendulum swings back and forth. And by understanding this principle, we can anticipate changes, prepare for them, and even use them to propel us forward.
It takes the pressure off trying to control everything.
Right. And it allows us to flow with those natural rhythms.
Okay, let's move on to cause and effect. Principle number 6.
Yeah. This one is crucial for understanding how our thoughts and actions shape our reality. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized.
So are you saying there's no such thing as coincidence?
That's the core idea. Everything happens for a reason. And it challenges us to think about the unseen causes that are shaping our lives. If we want to change the effects, we need to become aware of the causes we're setting in motion.
So it's about taking responsibility.
Exactly. We're not suggesting that every single event in our lives is directly caused by our thoughts, but rather that our thoughts and actions create ripples of energy that influence what happens.
Well, what we put out into the world comes back to us, huh?
There are definitely parallels. It's not about punishment or reward, but about understanding that we are constantly creating causes that will have corresponding effects.
Okay, so if we want more joy, more abundance, more fulfillment, we need to plant those seeds.
Precisely, through our thoughts, beliefs, and actions. And that brings us to the final principle, gender, which is often misunderstood.
Gender. Okay, I'm curious. How does that fit in with all of this?
It's not about biological sex or gender roles. It's about the interplay of creative forces in the universe. Gender isn't everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles.
Okay, but what does that actually mean in practice?
It's about recognizing that creation arises from the interplay of two polarities. The masculine principle, willpower, action, outward expression, and the feminine principle, receptivity, intuition, inward creation.
So it's like two sides of the same coin again.
In a way, yeah. Think about it. You have a great idea, that's the masculine, but you need planning, organization to make it happen. That's the feminine.
Like the spark of inspiration needs the structure to actually become something real.
Exactly. And this principle helps us tap into both of those forces within ourselves to find that balance between action and receptivity, between pushing forward and allowing things to unfold.
This has been really helpful, to be honest. It feels like a whole new way of looking at things at my own life.
And this is just scratching the surface, really. These principles are meant to be studied, contemplated, and most importantly, applied.
So the real magic happens when we start to integrate these principles into our lives.
Exactly. It's about putting them into practice.
That's what I'm excited about. But before we jump into the practical stuff, let's quickly recap what we've covered so far, just so everyone's on the same page. So we started with mentalism, the foundation of everything.
Right, that the universe is fundamentally mental.
Yeah, mind-blowing stuff. Then we moved on to correspondence, how our inner world shapes our outer experience.
Right, highlighting the power of our thoughts and beliefs.
And then vibration, that everything is energy, constantly in motion, including our thoughts, which attracts similar vibrations.
Yeah. And then polarity, that duality is everywhere, giving us the power to choose our perspective.
And rhythm, that everything flows in cycles, encouraging us to go with the flow, so to speak.
Right. And then cause and effect, taking responsibility for our choices, understanding that our actions have consequences.
And finally, gender, the interplay of creative forces, encouraging us to find that balance within ourselves.
Wow, when you put it all together like that.
It really is pretty powerful stuff.
It is, yeah. It creates a framework for understanding not just the universe, but ourselves, our place in it all.
Yeah. And in the next part of our workshop, we'll dive into mental transmutation, how to actually use these principles to transform our lives in practical ways.
I'm excited for that.
Me too. So stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everybody. So we've laid the groundwork with these 7 Hermetic Principles. Now it's time to explore how we can actually use them to transform our lives.
Okay, this is what I'm really interested in.
Yeah, this is where it gets really exciting. And this is where the concept of mental transmutation comes in.
Mental transmutation. Okay.
Yeah, it sounds kind of magical, right? Like alchemy for the mind.
It does. It's like, can we really change our thoughts and emotions just like that?
That's the idea.
Yeah.
It builds on this understanding that our thoughts and emotions are forms of energy,
Okay.
and that we can actually learn to consciously direct and transform that energy.
So if I'm stuck in like a negative thought pattern or feeling some unwanted emotion, I can actually change it.
Yeah. It's not about suppressing those thoughts or emotions or pretending they're not there. It's about understanding their nature.
Okay. And then consciously shifting their vibration.
Okay, but how do we actually do that? Like, what are some techniques?
Well, the Kybalion highlights several techniques, and one of the most powerful is polarization.
Polarization.
Yeah, remember the principle of polarity. Everything has two poles, two opposite aspects.
Right. Love and hate. Courage and fear.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about how we can use that principle to shift our perspective by focusing on the desired pole, right? Well, polarization takes that a step further.
Okay.
It's about consciously using your will and your attention to actually amplify that desired energy and diminish the unwanted energy.
So it's not just about changing your thoughts, it's about changing the energy behind them.
Yeah. It's like going deeper. Let's say you're feeling overwhelmed with anxiety, right? Instead of trying to fight that anxiety head on,
Right.
you could focus on cultivating its opposite piece.
Calmness. So it's more effective than just telling yourself to calm down.
Exactly. It's about actually shifting the underlying energy, and the Kybalion refers to this as mental alchemy. Ooh, I like that. Mental alchemy.
Yeah. It's like transmuting those base metal thoughts and emotions into gold.
So how do we actually practice this polarization? Like, is there a specific technique?
Well, one way is to use affirmations. So when you're feeling anxious, you could repeat affirmations like, I am calm, I am peaceful, I am safe and secure.
Okay.
And by consciously choosing those positive thoughts and beliefs, you start to shift that vibration.
So it's not just about, like, repeating empty words. It's about really feeling them, believing them.
Yeah, exactly. The more you believe in those affirmations, the more powerful they become.
Okay, this is making sense. It's like we really do have this power within us to change our inner state, and then that, like, ripples out into our reality.
Yeah, that's the heart of mental transmutation. It's about taking ownership of that inner landscape.
But what if you're feeling so overwhelmed, like, by negative thoughts and emotions, that you can't even focus on the positive?
Well, that's where the technique of neutralization comes in. And this is about rising above those lower planes of consciousness where those negative thoughts and emotions are kind of swirling around.
So it's like detaching from the drama.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that you are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the observer, the witness.
Okay.
And by stepping back and observing those thoughts and emotions without judgment, you can start to detach from them.
So instead of getting caught up in the story of like, oh, I'm so stressed, I can just observe that feeling of stress.
Exactly. And as you practice this, you'll find those thoughts and emotions, they start to lose their power over you. It's like watching clouds passing by in the sky. You don't try to control them, you just observe them.
That's a great analogy. It's like creating space.
Yeah. And it allows you to choose how you want to respond rather than just react.
Okay. So we have polarization, which is about amplifying the positive, and then neutralization, which is about detaching from the negative. Are there any other techniques?
Yeah. The Kybalion also mentions the power of visualization.
Oh, okay.
where we create these vivid mental images of our desired outcomes,
Okay.
and that aligns our energy with those outcomes.
So it's like creating a mental blueprint.
Exactly. And the more detailed and emotionally charged those visualizations are, the more powerful they become.
I've heard of athletes using this.
All the time, yeah.
Like they imagine themselves winning the race or making the shot.
Exactly. And the same principle applies to any area of life. Whether it's attracting abundance, improving relationships, achieving a specific goal,
So this is kind of like the law of attraction.
there are definitely connections there. The Kybalion predates the modern law of attraction movement, but it lays the foundation for understanding how our thoughts and beliefs shape our reality.
Okay, so it's not just wishful thinking, it's about really focusing our energy.
Intentionally.
Hmm.
And then there's gratitude, which the Kybalion doesn't explicitly talk about as a technique,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a practice that's very much aligned with these principles.
Gratitude. Okay, yeah, I've heard a lot about that. How does that fit in here? Well, gratitude is a powerful way to raise your vibration.
Okay.
When you focus on what you're grateful for, you shift your attention away from negativity and lack, and you start to attract more of what you appreciate.
So it's like focusing on the full part of the glass instead of the empty part.
Yeah, exactly. It's about cultivating that mindset of abundance and recognizing the blessings that are already present in your life.
Okay.
Oh.
This is all very empowering. Like,
Yeah.
we're not just victims of circumstance, but we can actually choose how we want to experience life.
That's the beauty of mental transmutation.
Yeah. But it also sounds like it takes a lot of work.
It does. It takes practice. It takes discipline. The Kybalion emphasizes that mental mastery is a lifelong journey.
Right.
It's not a quick fix. It's about consistent effort, self-awareness, and a willingness to experiment and see what works for you.
So where do we even begin? Like, what's a practical first step?
Start with awareness.
Okay.
Pay attention to your thoughts. Notice the patterns.
Hmm.
Are you constantly dwelling on negativity? Focusing on lack?
That's a great first step, just becoming aware.
And once you're aware of those patterns, you can start to challenge them. Ask yourself, is this thought serving me? Is it helping me create the reality I want?
And if the answer is no, we can use these techniques like polarization, neutralization, visualization to actually shift our thinking.
Exactly. It's about becoming a conscious gardener of your mind, planting those seeds of positivity, abundance, joy.
This is a lot to take in, but it's really exciting stuff.
It is. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of, like, what's possible.
And remember, this is just the beginning.
Right.
The Kybalion is a book you can return to again and again, and each time you'll probably discover new insights.
Now I'm really curious to hear about your personal experience with all of this. Have you had any, like, aha moments or breakthroughs in your own life using these techniques?
You know, one of the biggest shifts for me came when I started applying the principle of neutralization to my anxiety. I used to get so caught up in worry and fear, constantly trying to control everything. But when I learned to just observe those anxious thoughts and feelings,
Yeah.
without judgment, they started to lose their grip on me.
So you weren't trying to fight the anxiety, you were just letting it be there.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't about pretending it wasn't there, but about changing my relationship to it.
Well, that's really interesting.
And as I did that, I noticed I had so much more energy and clarity to focus on the things that really mattered.
So it's not about becoming some kind of emotionless robot.
Yeah, not at all.
It's about learning to navigate those emotions in a more skillful way.
Yeah, becoming the master of your mind rather than being enslaved by it.
This has been so helpful. I'm really starting to feel like I have these tools now.
And remember, it's a journey. The more you explore these teachings, the more you experiment with these techniques, the more you'll discover that potential within yourself.
I'm excited to keep going. But before we wrap up this part, I want to make sure we connect this back to, like, the physical world. We've been talking a lot about the mental universe, but how does all of this relate to our everyday experiences?
That's a great question. And that leads us perfectly into the final part of our workshop, where we'll explore that relationship between the mental and the physical,
Okay.
and discover how we can use these principles to create real change in our lives.
Sounds good. Can't wait. Welcome back to our deep dive into the Kybalion. All right, so we've explored the 7 principles. We've talked about mental transmutation. Now I'm really curious, how does this all actually play out in our lives? You know, we talk about this mental universe, but what about the physical world?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? Like, we're shifting our thoughts, our vibrations. But how does that translate into actual change out there in the world?
Well, the Kybalion suggests that the mental and the physical are not as separate as we might think.
So it's not just about, like, feeling good on the inside, it can actually change things around us. Exactly. Remember the principle of mentalism. The all is mind. If the universe is fundamentally mental, then our thoughts actually have a creative power that extends beyond our own heads.
Okay, get that. But how does that work? Is it like we just wish for something and poof, it appears?
It's more nuanced than that. The Kybalion talks about these things called thought forms.
Thought forms.
Yeah, they're like energetic entities that are created by our thoughts, and they interact with the mental substance of the universe, attracting or repelling similar energies.
So it's like our thoughts are sending out signals and drawing in matching experiences.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And remember the principle of correspondence. As above, so below. Our inner world shapes our outer world. So if we're constantly dwelling on negativity, fear, lack, we're more likely to attract experiences that reflect that.
But is there, like, any proof of this? It sounds pretty far out there.
Well, it definitely challenges the way we normally think about things. The Kybalion itself doesn't offer scientific proof, but there are some interesting connections to things we're discovering now, like quantum physics,
Oh, okay.
which explores how observation affects reality at a subatomic level. So the idea that our minds can influence matter, it's not as crazy as it might have seemed 100 years ago.
Right. And I guess there's also the placebo effect, right? Like, if someone believes a pill will work, even if it's a sugar pill, they can experience real results.
Exactly. It's the power of belief. And the Kybalion encourages us to become conscious of our beliefs and to use them to create the reality we want.
So it's not about denying that there are challenges, but it's about shifting our mindset to one that's more empowered.
Yeah. Recognizing that we have more agency than we think, we can choose our thoughts, cultivate those positive emotions, and take action that's aligned with what we want to create.
I like that. But I also imagine it takes a lot of, like, practice and discipline to really change those deep-seated thought patterns.
Absolutely. The Kybalion talks about mental mastery as a lifelong journey, not a quick fix. It's about consistent effort, self-awareness, and being willing to experiment.
So where do we even begin? Like, what's one practical thing someone can do today to start applying this?
Start with awareness.
Okay.
Pay attention to your thoughts. What are the patterns? Are you dwelling on negativity? Focusing on lack?
Just becoming aware is a big step, I think.
It is. And once you're aware of those patterns, you can start to challenge them. Ask yourself, is this thought really serving me? Is it helping me create the reality I want?
And if the answer is no, we can use those techniques we talked about, like polarization, neutralization, visualization, to start shifting our thinking.
Exactly. You become the gardener of your own mind, planting those seeds of positivity, abundance, and joy.
This has been an incredible journey. Like, we've gone from ancient Egypt to quantum physics, exploring these really profound ideas.
And it's all interconnected.
It is. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of my own mind and what's possible in life.
That's what it's all about.
It is. And listeners, I encourage you to, dive deeper into these teachings yourselves. Experiment. Explore. See how you can apply these principles to your own lives. Until next time, keep seeking that knowledge. And remember, the all is mind. The universe is mental.
Absolutely. Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
And thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure exploring the Kybalion with you. See you next time, everyone.